So now let's start from the beginning one more time. I said that in solution thermodynamics, this term solution is important to understand. Okay, till now I assume that all of you have attended the basic thermodynamics quick revision class, and you know what we were doing there. So in basic thermodynamics, we were talking about the pure gases. Doesn't matter they are real or ideal. We were analyzing the systems having those gases, pure gases, and how we are analyzing? We were analyzing all those systems having pure gases with the help of some thermodynamic properties like temperature, pressure, internal energy, entropy, enthalpy, etc. Volume as well. Okay. Under some constraint. Those constraints are the laws of thermodynamics, like first law, second law, third law of thermodynamics, and zeroth law of thermodynamics. Now the same thing we are going to do for the solutions. Now what is solution? So we should know that solution means one phase mixture. Homogeneous mixtures are also known as solutions. Okay. So solution means homogeneous mixture. Homogeneous mixture means more than one components are there. In basic thermo we were talking about pure component, pure gas. Here we are talking about multiple components in one phase. So multiple components are there. So obviously when I want to analyze the system, so all of you will agree with me that I may need some additional properties. Okay. So here in solution thermodynamics, we will talk about all those additional properties, the effect of temperature, pressure on them, and their calculations, how we are going to determine the value of those properties and all that stuff. Okay. So on that note, the first thing is the fundamental properties. So as we know, till now we have discussed only four thermodynamic fundamental properties: temperature, pressure, volume, and entropy. And I hope all of you know that. Okay. But in solution thermodynamics, when we talk about solution thermodynamics, so one more fundamental property come in the picture, and that is composition, means mole fraction. Okay. So composition, mole fraction is also one of the fundamental thermodynamic property. Why? Because if you see the criteria of being a thermodynamic property, then composition has exact differential, it has the cyclic integral equal to 0, it is a continuous function, and obviously time invariant. Okay, means the value will not change with the time. So composition is also one important thermodynamic fundamental property, which we will see. So before we talk about all that stuff, let's talk about the thermodynamic property relations. Okay, and the results are important, and thermodynamic property relations are basically the method by which we can calculate the fundamental thermodynamic properties by using thermodynamic potential. And there are four main thermodynamic potential as they are in our syllabus: internal energy, enthalpy, Helmholtz free energy, and Gibbs free energy. So if you use this mnemonic diagram given by the Schroeder in his research paper, then the main thermodynamic potential, HAG, so H is equal to on positive x direction plus VV and negative y direction minus TS. So H equal to U plus PV, A equal to U minus TS, and G equal to U plus VV minus TS, which you can write like H minus TS, or you can also write it as A plus PV. Okay. So their results are important, but how can you obtain those results? If you are able to memorize them, it's wonderful. Otherwise, you can directly derive them within fraction of seconds. Okay, in no time. How? Like see, if you see for internal energy, so E, that is U, and from first law of thermodynamics, we know that du is equal to del Q minus del W, where del Q is the heat supplied to the system, and del W is the work done by the system. Okay, so from second law of thermodynamics, I hope you know that del Q can be written as TdS, and for reversible process, for closed systems, if I talk about for closed system having pure gas, or simply pure component. It could be pure liquid or solid as well. Okay, so del W for closed system can be written as PdV. Okay, and from mathematics, I hope you know that there are three variables: dependent, independent, and constants, and we can differentiate the independent variables. With the help of that, we see the variation in dependent variables. So du being the dependent variable, here we can see ds and dv are the independent variables, means u is the function of s and v. So you can calculate the total derivative of u, that will be du is equal to del u over del s over constant volume into ds plus del u over del v at constant s into dv. And if you compare these two equations, you will get T is equal to del u over del s at constant v, and P is equal to minus of del u over del v at constant s. So that's how we can calculate the temperature and pressure using internal energy. Okay. Now next is enthalpy. Which is U plus PV, or you can write dH is equal to du plus PdV plus VdP. Okay, so if you put the value of du here, so dH will become TdS plus VdP. So it's obvious that H is the function of S and P. So now either you can find out the total derivative and do, or otherwise you can directly write T is equal to and V is equal to what? See, one thing is obvious, T is equal to what? Del H over del S. Okay, if you take P constant, then this term will become 0. T will become del H over del S at constant pressure. Similarly, if you want to calculate V, then keep S constant. If you have put S constant, then V will become dH over dP, or you can write it as del H over del P at constant S. Simple. As simple as that. Okay, so you don't need to do all this derivation. Just write down this equation, and it will take hardly 10 to 15 seconds to write down this equation and get this result. Okay. Like similarly for A, we know that A is equal to U minus TS. So you can write dA is equal to du minus TdS minus SdT. If you put du, so all of us know, we have used internal energy, first law of thermodynamics so many times that everyone know what is du. Okay, so this equation is already in our blood. Okay, so you can write du equal to TdS minus PdV. So TdS will get cancelled and dA will be equal to minus of PdV minus S dt. Okay, if you want to calculate P, put T equal to constant. If T is constant, this term will become 0. So P will be equal to minus of del A over del V at constant temperature. Similarly, if you want to calculate S, put V0, matlab constant. So S will be equal to minus of del A over del T at constant V. So that's how you can calculate the thermodynamic properties, pressure and entropy using Helmholtz free energy. Okay. Similarly, for Gibbs energy, we are talking about pure component and closed system. So we know that dg will G is equal to H minus Ts. So dg is equal to dH minus Tds minus SDT. If you know the equation of dH, it's wonderful. In case you don't know, no problem. You also know that G is equal to U plus PV minus Ts. Okay, so you can write dg is equal to du plus PdV plus VdP minus TdS minus SDT. Du, you know that du is what? TdS minus PdV. So see, TdS will get cancelled, PdV will get cancelled, and dg will be equal to VdP minus SDT. That means V is equal to del G over del P at constant temperature, and S is equal to minus of del G over del T. से क्या हो गया? At constant pressure. So that's how you can write down the thermodynamic properties with the help of thermodynamic property potentials. Is it clear, all these things? Yes, no? Sorry, I don't know how to write G. That is one problem, although G is also there in my surname, but unfortunately I draw G like this. Okay, so in case you are not able to understand any time, you can mention. I can't write G like this, so I write G like this. अब ये मत बोलना कि अभी लिख नहीं सकते तो यहाँ कैसे लिख दिया, वो बस मैं बताने के लिए लिखा है कि मैं ऐसे नहीं बना सकता. So I hope this is clear to all of you guys. This is thermodynamic property relations for pure gas, pure component and closed system. Now, for solution thermo, I don't care about any one of the equation. I just care about this. So here one thing should be clear to you. We have dg is equal to VdP minus SDT for closed system and pure component. Here few notations should be clear to you, which we have used in our sub classes and which are based on some standard books. Okay, if I talk about the total property, or you can say total molar property, so we will denote that by capital letter power T, okay, or N multiplied by capital M. These are the notations which we are going to use. Molar property, we are going to denote by capital letters like capital B, capital G, capital U, capital H, capital S, etc. And specific property, these notations may be different than the notations which you have used in basic thermo. So you should be clear with the meanings. Okay, specific properties are like by small letters, like specific internal energy, small u, specific volume, small v, specific enthalpy, small h, like that. Okay. So here if you see in all these equations which we just draw, what are these properties if someone asks you? See, P and T are not the extensive properties. So we cannot write them like this. All these things we can write down only for the extensive properties. I hope all of you know that. Because the specific property and molar property we calculate to convert the extensive property into one intensive property. Okay. So here this G will be what? This G will be the molar Gibbs energy. What is the unit? The unit will be, since it is energy, so joule per mole, molar hai. If it is a specific Gibbs energy, so it will be joule per kg. Okay, in SI units. So in a specific units, you can write it as dg is equal to small v dp minus small s dt. This is the specific Gibbs energy. Specific volume, specific entropy. And I hope you know that the units of specific entropy will be joule per kg per Kelvin in SI system. And for entropy, only joule per Kelvin. Now, in total Gibbs energy, in the form of total Gibbs energy, the equation will become like dGt, total Gibbs energy, total volume, total entropy. Okay. And all these are for closed system and pure component. So now if I talk about for closed system and solution. Now it not have any component, it has solution. Then, and since it has a solution, means components are there. And multiple components are there, so I have to use one more fundamental property, that is composition. So I can write dGt as Vt dP minus St dt and what? See, we just saw that for closed system and pure components, G was the function of pressure and temperature. Oh, that's why we got this result, this equation. As it's obvious, G is the function of pressure and temperature for pure component. Now since solution is there, so G will be the function of pressure, temperature and composition. Composition you can write like N1, N2 and so on up to Ni. Whatever components are there. So that composition term will also come in the picture, and it will, you can write it as summation of mu I into dNi, where mu I is the chemical potential. What is that? That we will see. This is the total Gibbs energy, total volume, total entropy, chemical potential and moles of component I. Summation means for all those components. If 3 components are there, then mu1 dn1 plus mu2 dn2 plus mu3 dn3, like that. Okay. Anyways. For molar Gibbs energy, you can write it as, just divide this by total moles. Total Gibbs energy divided by total moles, molar Gibbs energy. Total volume divided by total moles, molar volume. Total entropy divided by total moles, molar entropy. Chemical potential divided by total moles, nothing. So chemical potential will be as it is, because chemical potential is one intensive property. dNi, moles of I divided by total moles, mole fraction. So it will become Xi. So this is the equation, and these two equations, these few equations should be clear in your mind, because entire solution thermodynamics is based on these equations. And there is a proverb only, it is not a name. You will not find this name anywhere in the book or literature. Just for our understanding, we will say, just for to remember these things, we will say that these equations are called base equation of solution thermodynamics. Base equation of solution thermodynamics. Just for our understanding, we will say like that. Okay? It is not a name given to these equations. Just for our understanding, I am giving this name. So I hope all these equations are clear to you and you can understand what is the meaning of each and every notation. Now, let's start. So first property which we are going to start is fugacity. No, man nahi. First property which we will start is partial molar property. Also called PMP. That is partial molar property. Okay, what is that? See, let's understand that what is this, and then the equations which are involved here and how to calculate that for a binary mixture as per our syllabus. Okay, so if I talk about the 1 mole H2O, what is the volume? That is 18 cubic centimeter. Okay, so if someone asks you what is the molar volume of H2O, you can simply say 18 cubic centimeter by mole. Means when water is in pure form, then the molar volume of pure water is 18 cubic centimeter by mole. Okay, so there are suppose two containers. Okay, now let's see one example. Okay, suppose this is some container, there is some volume. And let's say this volume is 100 liter. Okay, there is water or any liquid is there. The volume of this liquid is 100 liter. Okay, let's say water. Now suppose this is some other component, let's say A. And it is completely miscible in water. Okay, we know that it is miscible in water. But I don't know the volume. Let's say this volume is Y liter. Okay, so I am adding this volume in this. What will happen? This A, component A, will dissolve in water, obviously. What is the volume of A? I am dissolving. I don't know. But I know one thing. When I added A, suppose the volume become this. That is 103 liter. The final volume. This was the initial volume and this is the final volume of the solution. Okay. So on this analysis, what we can say? Can I say the volume of A which I have added, Y, is equal to 3 liter? Yes, I can say that. On first analysis, I can say the value of Y is about 3 liter. Okay. So how I calculated that value? By change in total volume. I measure the change in total volume here and I got the value of this solution, this component. Simple. And that's how we normally do the analysis. Okay. Like if you have 1000 rupees, okay, in your account and someone deposits some amount in your account. Okay. You don't know how much amount he has deposited. Okay, but when you see the final closing balance, you will see that suppose initial balance was 1000 and now the closing balance is 1500 rupees. So you will definitely say that, oh, the person has deposited 500 rupees. Okay, so same thing here based on the total value, total property. Now suppose this is water in this container, and in this container I have ethanol. The initial total volume in both the container is suppose 100 cubic centimeter. Now I am adding 1 mole of H2O in this. When I add 1 mole H2O in this water, the total volume becomes 118 cubic centimeter. Okay, so it means initial was 100, final is 118. So what is the volume of this 1 mole H2O? So I will say the molar volume of H2O will remain 18 cubic centimeter by mole, as it was initially, because we know that 1 mole H2O has this molar volume. Now if I add 1 mole H2O in ethanol, the total volume from 100 cubic centimeter to become 114 cubic centimeter. हमारे साथ तो स्कैम हो गया. Now there is some scam going on. Let's try to understand what is that scam. We added a H2O which was having this volume 18 cubic centimeter by mole. But when it enters in ethanol, total volume should change by the factor of 18, like this. But it became 114. It means when this H2O enters in ethanol, its volume reduces. Its volume reduces from 18 to 14. So I will say the volume of water in ethanol, volume of water in water is 18 cubic centimeter by mole. But volume of water in ethanol is 14 cubic centimeter by mole. And since it is different, then it's pure form. So this is what will I say? The partial molar volume of water in ethanol. Okay. Either you can say the molar volume of water in ethanol, but if I use the term molar volume, so it will generate some contradictions in my mind. Okay, because molar volume was 18, but here it is 14. So values are changing. So I can't use the same term. That's why I am using another term known as partial molar volume. Okay, and why I am using this term partial? Because if this is pure ethanol, this value will be 14. But if you use any other container where suppose I have 50% ethanol and 50% water in this solution, and if I add this H2O here, then the volume will increase from 100 to suppose 116. So then I will say the partial molar volume of water is 16 cubic centimeter by mole. Okay. So it means the partial molar volume is depends on the composition of other component as well. When it was pure 100% ethanol, it is 14. When it is 50% ethanol, this is 116. Okay. Although let me clear one thing. These two values are the experimentally found values, so these are absolutely correct. This is just a predicted value. I just predicted to help you understand the concept. Okay, so if you find somewhere that in 50% ethanol volume is anything else. So don't argue on that. Okay, this is just a prediction so that you can understand the logic. So that's why we are using this term partial, because the value depends on the composition of other components as well. Okay, now why there is a change? So we can think of n number of reasons, but the main reason is water. It is meeting, it is interacting with similar kind of people. Human being, animals. Like you are lost in a jungle. Now you are surrounded by so many dangerous and toxic animals. Obviously your interaction with them will be different. So kind of like that. Or otherwise you can think one more example. Like after some, let's say, thousands or million years later, suppose you are traveling to some city. After thousand and million years later, you are traveling some city, and if you meet with your school friends, then you will easily interact with them because you are comfortable, you know each and everything about those people. But if you meet some other people who used to bully you, okay, then you will not interact with them easily because you are not comfortable with them, or some unknown people, strangers. Okay, so this is like it. Just you can think of like your BTech first day of BTech first year and last day of BTech first year. Okay, in first day you were not interactive with anyone, you were feeling like alone. But in last day you are traveling everywhere because you know each and everything about your college and the people. Okay, so final year, first year. That's how you can understand. So this is kind of the partial molar properties. Okay, so I hope it is clear to all of you. Now, how can we calculate that? How can we define that mathematically? So there are few notations as we know. Molar property of solution. We will denote it by M, capital M. Total molar property of solution. We will denote it by capital M. Molar property of component I. We will denote it by Mi. Molar property, actually partial molar property of component I. And if I am talking about the partial molar property, then it's obvious it is in a solution. So if I write in solution or if I don't write in solution, it's obvious it is in a solution. Because for pure component, we will not talk about the partial molar property. If we will denote it by Mi bar, capital Mi bar. So mathematically, you can define partial molar property of any component I as the change in total molar property of the solution with respect to change in moles of component I at constant temperature, pressure, and keeping all the other components constant. You are changing moles of I, so we will keep all other components constant. We will not touch them. So you can say Nj, which is not equal to I. That's how we can define the partial molar property. Okay. And for any binary solution, forget about that. For a solution, you can calculate at constant temperature and pressure, The molar property of the solution you can calculate as summation of mi bar into xi. And total molar property of the solution you can calculate as summation of mi bar into ni. And you can calculate the partial molar properties for any binary mixture or solution, whatever you wanna say, you can say that. If I am using term mixture, it also means I am talking about homogeneous mixture. For a binary mixture having only two components, 1 and 2, suppose, so you can calculate m1 bar as m minus x2 dm over dx2, and you can calculate m2 bar as m minus x1 dm over dx1. Simple. Okay, it is easy to memorize the equation as well. If you wish, you can also write this equation in other terms, like we know that dx1 is equal to minus of dx2 for a binary mixture. Okay, as x1 plus x2 will be 1, so dx1 equal to minus of dx2. So you can write minus of dx1 as, dx1 as minus of dx2 minus minus plus. Or you can write x1 as 1 minus x2. Okay, similarly you can write m1 bar as m plus 1 minus x1 dm over dx1. You can calculate like this as well. Okay, so that's not a big deal. So by using these two equations, you can calculate the partial molar property of any component in the solution. It's very simple. Okay. So this is all about the partial molar properties. Now how to calculate that? How to calculate the partial molar properties? There are 4 or 5 questions they have asked in GATE exam. So we will discuss one question here, and the remaining question you can practice by yourself, because all that are very easy. Simple mathematics is there. Okay. I hope all these things are clear. So now let's move on to the question. As I told you, on our website, on our website www.thegatecoach.com, if you visit there, on the bottom section of the page there is a download section, and in download section there is thermodynamics PDF is there. having all the last 20 years questions subject wise. So based on that file, I will use the same sequence. Okay, because right now Wi-Fi is not connected here and I don't know the password. So when we will in between, I will try to connect it and show you the question. Otherwise, you can see there by yourself. Okay, so there was a question. (62) and 74. Let's take 2 minutes, try to solve it by yourself, then we will discuss. Till then, I am also sharing the PDF of this file on your Telegram group. Some of you are on Telegram group, some of you are on WhatsApp group. So you can visit there as well. Okay, now let's start our discussion. So in question number 62, it is both of these questions were there for 2 marks. Okay, so in 62 it is given that the molar volume V of a binary mixture of component 1 and 2 having mole fractions x and x2 respectively, V is equal to given 220 x1 plus 180 x2 plus x1 x2 times of 90 x1 plus 50 x2. Okay, so the partial molar volume of component 2 at x2 is equal to 0.3 will be, there are few options. So partial molar volume of component 2 you have to calculate. So we know that if x2 is 0.3, so x1 will be 0.7. Okay, so V2 bar we can calculate as V minus x1. Oh my god, ये मार्कर का ये खराब हो गया है, dv over dx1. दूसरा मार्कर ले लूँगा. Anyways, that's how we can calculate V2 bar. So here, if you want to differentiate V in terms of x1, one thing you have to do first, you have to change all the parameters, all the values in terms of x1. So it is 220 x1, 180 x2. So we know that x2 is the function of x1 and we can write it as 1 minus x1 plus 1 minus x1 times of 90 x1 plus 50 times of 1 minus x1. Now let's differentiate this with respect to x1. So you will get, this is 220, this is minus 180. I hope you can differentiate that, okay? This is simple mathematical calculation. Here, A into B. So U into V differentiation is U dV plus V du. So U as it is, differentiation of this term, that will be 90 minus 50 plus V as it is 90 x1 plus 50 times of 1 minus x1 multiply by differentiation of this, that will be x1, means 1 minus x1 square, that is 2x1. Okay, so you can rearrange this expression, you will get dv by dv over dx1 equal to something, okay, on rearrangement. I hope you can do that, like 220 minus 180, 40 x1 minus 40 x1 square plus 90 x1 plus 50 minus 50 x1, that is plus 40 x1 multiply by 1 minus 2 x1. Okay, and further you can rearrange this, you will get dv by dx1, put that value here in this expression, you will get, and after that put x1 equal to 0.7, x2 equal to 0.3, you will get your answer. Okay, that's not a big deal. I hope you can solve it now. The answer for 62 will be B. Okay, you can cross check. Next is 74. So one thing should be clear before we talk about 74. One more term is there which should be clear to you. Okay. Like if I have a solution having two components, suppose 1 and 2. So mole fraction of 1 will be x1, mole fraction of 2 will be x2. Okay. If I say component 1 is infinitely dilute, solution is infinitely dilute in component 1. What is the meaning? It simply means component 1 is there in a very small amount. So x1 tends to 0. Okay. But if I say solution is infinitely dilute in component 2, okay, so it means x2 will be 0. x2 will be tends to 0, means component 2 is in very small amount. Okay, so I hope you understand this. So for 74, if you read the question, it is given the molar density of the solution of a binary solution is 1 plus x2. Talk about the molar density, what should be the unit? For mass density, units are kg per cubic meter. So for molar density, unit should be mole per cubic meter. the SI units. Okay, so here you have to calculate the partial molar volume at infinite dilution for component 1. Partial molar volume at infinite dilution for component 1 means V1 bar at infinite dilution and X1 is tends to 0. That is the meaning. Okay, so here V1 bar will be equal to V minus X2 or dV over dx2, whatever you want, you can write it like that. Okay, so here, but what is V? V is the molar volume. So what is molar volume? We don't know. Density is given. So if you know density kg per cubic meter, reciprocal of density is meter cube per kg. That is specific volume. Similarly, molar density, reciprocal will be molar volume. That is 1 upon 1 plus x2. भला इसका दूसरा मार्कर कहाँ है पता है? वो एक्स्ट्रा है, हटा दे, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं, इसी में है. ये तो ज्यादा हैवी हो जाएगा यार. आई एम नॉट यूज्ड टू इट, इसलिए इसे बाद में देखेंगे. अपने पास कोई ड्राई मार्कर है? अपने पास कोई सूखे मार्कर हैं? हाँ बिल्कुल. So here guys, this is V. So you can find out dV by dx2. ये सही चल रहा है. You can differentiate that and you can find out dV by dx2 whatever it is. I think minus 1 upon 1 plus x2 whole square. Maybe, I'm not sure. You can check. Okay. And then put this value here and solve. You will get your answer. The thing is, partial molar volume of component 1 at infinite dilution means x1 tends to 0. So x2 will be tends to 1. And when you solve this, your answer should be 0.75. Simple. So partial molar properties are a very simple topic. Okay. It is a very simple topic and scoring as well. A simple question will be there. Simple mathematical calculations are there. You just need to do that. Okay. It is the most easiest topic we can say in solution thermodynamics. I hope this is clear to you. So this is all about the partial molar property. Now let's move to the next topic. Next property. That is chemical potential. I hope all of you know one thing. In this entire universe, whatever I want to do or whatever is happening around me or away from me, whatever process is going on, if any star is forming, any star is destroying, or any flower is destroying, whatever it is, everything in this entire universe, whatever is happening around us required some energy. If that is a process of formation, energy inputs will be there, energy requirement will be there. If there is any destruction, energy will release. Okay, and I hope all of you know about all that stuff. Heat is also one kind of energy, that is thermal energy, and we know that if there are two systems, tell me, suppose there are two systems, A at 40 degrees Celsius, suppose another system is B at 20 degrees Celsius. Okay, suppose there are two systems A and B, the temperature are 40 and 20. What will be the direction of heat transfer? Think and say what will be the direction of heat transfer. Heat transfer will occur in this direction. And temperature is obviously, you know, the thermal potential difference basically responsible for the heat transfer. Anyways, so what will be the direction of heat transfer here? Let's think. If any one of you know who is watching live, you can, otherwise no problem. You can that answer only. The direction of heat transfer. We know that heat transfer takes place from high temperature to low temperature. So here, maybe some of you can say that direction of heat transfer is from A to B. Okay, but that is absolutely incorrect. I said there are two systems, A and B at different temperatures. But I didn't say they are in thermal communication as well. So if these two systems are there, but they are not in thermal communication, so heat transfer won't occur between them. If there is no thermal communication, like if there is any person is sitting on Jupiter and you are here on planet Earth, suppose his temperature is 70-100 degrees Celsius and yours is only 70. So heat will not transfer from that person to you because you and that person on the Jupiter are not in thermal communication. Okay, thermal communication, a medium is required. A channel is required basically, not medium, a channel should be there. So when these two systems are in thermal communication, only then heat will start to transfer from high temperature to low temperature, and that is because of the temperature difference. And obviously here is we have some energy. Similarly, if I have two systems, suppose this solution have 20 gram of A per liter and there is another solution only 2 gram of A per liter. If these two systems are also in some communication, if I connect these two systems by any means, then mass transfer will start from high concentration to low concentration. As we know, in this entire universe, everything is moving from high potential to low potential, whatever it is. Being it electricity, the height, the potential energy, temperature, voltage, anything. Mass transfer, heat transfer. So high concentration to low concentration, mass transfer will occur. And if mass transfer is occurring, so which energy is responsible there? Here we said that heat energy, okay? But here in mass transfer, which energy is responsible? The energy that is responsible for mass transfer is nothing but just the Gibbs free energy. ये कैसा जी है? ऐसा जी तो मैंने कभी नहीं बनाया. Gibbs free energy. Okay, what is Gibbs free energy here, and what is this Gibbs free energy has to do with this? So one thing should be clear to you about Gibbs free energy is that Gibbs free energy is present in every system. In some system it is at low level and in some system it is at high level. Okay. But the point is, like this heat energy we can use to do any external task. Like you can extract this heat transfer, whatever is happening between these two systems, you can extract that heat and you can utilize that heat to evaporate some water or for generator or for in your car engine, wherever you want, you can use that heat. Okay, or to generate the electricity in thermal power plants, wherever you need, you can use that heat. But this Gibbs free energy is present in every system and it is responsible for the mass transfer, but we cannot utilize this Gibbs free energy for any external work. Okay, this Gibbs free energy we cannot utilize for any external work. That's why IUPAC has suggested that instead of using the term free energy, you can only say Gibbs energy as well, to avoid that confusion. If you study that from mechanical point of view, this is called as maximum available useful work. Okay, means we can utilize that useful, but from chemical point of view, actually this energy we cannot utilize anywhere to do any external work. Why? Because this energy is consumed by the system to do its spontaneous activity. Like if I talk about a human body, in human body, blood is circulating throughout the body, heart is working, heart is pumping the blood, lungs are working, liver, kidney, so many things are there. Every part of the body requires some energy. Okay, are you using electric current or anything to do that work in your body? No. हम अपने आप को किसी सॉकेट से कनेक्ट नहीं करते. We are not robot. We are human beings. So obviously all these are spontaneous activities which are going in our body. So there must be some energy which is responsible for that. So you can say kind of a Gibbs energy. Like any person is there in real life. I am not talking about the movies. There is one more person. Okay, उसकी body में भी बहुत there is some energy which is present in his body and all those body parts are working. Can you extract that energy from that guy and use that energy for yourself? Movies में तो दिखाते हैं ऐसा हो जाता है, but in real life, can you do that? No, we can't do that. So that energy which is present in our body to do all these things, you can think of like a Gibbs free energy which will be utilized by us only, not anyone else. Okay, so kind of a selfish thing you can say. So this Gibbs energy is present in every system which is responsible for the spontaneous activities of that system only. You can't use that for any external work. Okay, this is Gibbs free energy. Now, how Gibbs free energy is responsible for mass transfer? So you have to understand that this chemical potential is nothing but just the partial molar Gibbs free energy. As we discussed partial molar properties, partial molar volume, partial molar enthalpy, partial molar Gibbs energy. So the Gibbs energy of this component in pure form will be something. Okay, the molar Gibbs energy of A, that is in pure form, it will be something. But when you add this A in the solution, it will have a different energy, partial molar Gibbs energy. And that partial molar Gibbs energy of A here will be more. As the concentration of A is more, amount of A is more. So GA bar 1, you can say this is 1, this is 2, is more than GA bar 2, partial molar Gibbs energy of A in that solution. So energy will transfer from high energy to low energy source, high energy source to low energy source. Okay, so this energy will transport from 1 to 2 by the molecules in form of mass transfer. Okay, and this partial molar Gibbs energy, partial molar Gibbs energy is known as chemical potential. So we will say chemical potential of A in first system is more than that of in second system, and that you must have studied in mass transfer as well, that molecules transport from high chemical potential to low chemical potential, basically from high Gibbs energy to low Gibbs energy. And this process will be going on until both these chemical potential become same. the Gibbs energy of A in both the solutions become same, because everything in this entire universe is going to wants to achieve that stability. Okay, so I hope the chemical potential is clear. Chemical potential is nothing but just the partial molar Gibbs free energy of the component in the solution. Okay, and with the help of Gibbs free energy we can find out the spontaneity of the process, whether the process is spontaneous or not. Okay, it's very simple. Like this is 1, this is 2. Okay, suppose let's take one more example. Suppose there is a reaction going on R2P. This is 1, this is 2. Gibbs energy here is G1, here Gibbs free energy is G2. So what is delta G? We know that change in anything, change is always final value minus initial value. So delta G will be G2 minus G1. We know that. Okay. So here we have three possible values for delta G. Either delta G will be negative, or delta G will be 0, or delta G will be positive. So if delta G is negative, it means G2 minus G1 is negative. That means G2 is less than G1. So molecules will transport from high Gibbs energy to low Gibbs energy, means reaction will take place from R to P. Okay. So we can say reaction is spontaneous in forward direction. Okay. Delta G is 0. That means G2 is equal to G1. It means reaction R and P are in equilibrium. The amount of molecules going from R to P and P to R are same. If 5 moles of R disappearing, simultaneously 5 moles of R will appear. Next is delta G is greater than 0. That means G2 is greater than G1. So reaction will occur from P to R. Okay, so we can say reaction is spontaneous in backward direction. Okay, now according to our requirement we can comment. Okay, like suppose we have a reaction N2 plus 3H2 gives NH3. Okay, I want to form ammonia. Ammonia is my desired product, and at certain temperature and pressure, if you find delta G is positive, at certain temperature pressure which you have maintained in the reactor, if delta G you are finding calculating is positive, that means if delta G is positive, it means reaction will be spontaneous in backward direction. Means whatever ammonia is there, it will disappear and form nitrogen and hydrogen. Is it a feasible case? No. We want ammonia to be formed. So we will say if delta G is coming out to be positive for such case, we will say reaction is not feasible. Okay, so we have to apply some work, we have to supply some heat in the system so that we can make this delta G negative. We can change this delta G from positive to being negative. Okay, because if delta G is negative, then obviously reaction is going on in forward direction, which is a feasible case, and we will say the spontaneous reaction. And you don't need to supply any heat or any energy to the system. This will take place automatically. Okay, so this is the thing. Similarly, if I talk about the mixing, okay, suppose there are two components which you are mixing. There are two components A and B. This is the state 1 where both are initially separated. This is state 2 when both are completely mixed. Okay, if delta G is negative, that means G2 is less than G1. G2 is less than G1. Let me write it again. Okay, if it is negative, it means G2 is less than G1. G2 is less than G1. That means molecules will get mixed by themselves naturally. That is a spontaneous process. For example, put some sugar in tea, put some sugar in water, put some sugar in coffee, whatever you like, or hot water and cold water. They get mixed easily. You don't need to do anything extra for that. Okay, although the process could be slow or fast, that is a different story, but that mixing is taking place naturally. Okay, so that is why, because delta G is negative, a spontaneous mixing. Okay, if delta G is positive for any system, it means G2 is greater than G1. Okay, means molecules are going from mixed state to initially separated state. That is the meaning. What is the meaning of this statement? Let's take the example of water and oil. For example, okay, you can think of any other example as well. Water and oil. When you add water and oil, they remain in the separated phase only. They are not easily. Natural mass transfer, natural mixing is not taking place. Okay. If you want water and oil to get mixed, then you need to supply some energy to the system. Okay. Either in the form of impeller, speed you have to increase, or you have to supply some heat or anything. Okay. When you supply the heat, only then they will get mixed. And when they will get mixed, so when you supply the heat, how much amount of heat you need to supply so that they can get mixed? At least equal to this value. Okay, that's how you can understand the processes are spontaneous or not. Spontaneous doesn't mean fast or slow. Spontaneous means naturally occurring processes. Okay, fast and slow means वो instantaneous हो जाता है. So don't get confused in these two words. Instantaneous process means fast process. Spontaneous process means naturally occurring process. Okay, so I hope all these things about the Gibbs free energy are clear to all of you guys. Okay, if you have any doubt regarding Gibbs free energy anywhere, you can mention on your group, or you can discuss that, or otherwise you can call on the office number, whatever it is. There are so many ways to communicate anyways. So that's all about the chemical potential. Now obviously here is the effect of temperature and pressure on chemical potential. So I hope you remember that. Effect of temperature on chemical potential is del mu I over del T is equal to minus of SI bar, and effect of pressure on chemical potential is del mu I over del P is equal to VI bar. Okay, so this is chemical potential, guys. All about the chemical potential and Gibbs free energy. The basic idea I have given you. What is that and how to utilize that? What is their significance and all that stuff. So now next we will talk about the fugacity. Okay, so in one go we will talk about the fugacity for pure component, then for pure solutions, and then for ideal solutions. Okay. And one more thing is there, I hope all of you know, I am not going in much detail there. Okay, you just know that the criteria of chemical equilibrium. Criteria of phase equilibrium. Suppose we have a closed system and there are two phases, alpha and beta. A mixture is there, a solution is there, and two phases are there, alpha and beta. Okay, since this is a closed system, the moles of any component I, total moles of any component I, which I can write it as moles of I in alpha plus moles of I in beta, that will be constant. Okay. So if you differentiate that, since total moles are not changing, so you can also write it as dni alpha is equal to minus of dni beta. Okay. What is the meaning? The simple is, if at equilibrium, if 5 moles of alpha, 5 moles of component I are going from alpha to beta, so simultaneously 5 moles of I will go from beta to alpha at equilibrium. Okay, so at phase equilibrium, we know that in thermodynamics, there is a term called thermodynamic equilibrium. And every system, any system is said to be in thermodynamic equilibrium if it is in thermal equilibrium, mechanical equilibrium, and chemical equilibrium. Thermal equilibrium means the temperature of the component, like if I talk about this system, temperature of alpha phase and temperature of beta phase has to be same. Mechanical equilibrium means the total pressure of alpha phase and total pressure of beta phase has to be same. And chemical equilibrium means summation of chemical potential in alpha phase, summation of chemical potential of all the components, and summation of chemical potential of all the components in beta phase has to be same. Okay, it doesn't mean that chemical potential of any component will be same in both the cases. No, not at all. The summation of chemical potential will be same. Okay, that you have to understand. For example, suppose I have a system where liquid vapor equilibrium is there, vapor liquid equilibrium is there, two components 1 and 2 are there. Okay, so mu1 in vapor and mu1 in liquid, it's not mandatory that this condition will be there at equilibrium. If the system is in vapor liquid equilibrium, this is not mandatory that for any component like one, their chemical potential in liquid and vapor will be same. It's not mandatory. It may or may not be. But one thing is sure, according to the criteria, that mu1 in chemical potential of 1 in liquid phase plus chemical potential of 2 in liquid phase will be equal to their sum of chemical potential in vapor phase. Okay, so remember this thing. It's not mandatory that it will, for any component it will be same always, no. Yeah, if that is a pure component, if it is a pure component, okay, like only water, only ammonia or anything, then their chemical potential will be same. But when I talk about the solution, it's not mandatory. It may or may not be. But yes, this will be always. The summation of chemical potential will be always. Okay. So that is the criteria of chemical potential and phase equilibrium. I hope all these things are clear to you. Now next we will talk about the fugacity for pure gas, then pure liquid, pure solid, and for the ideal and non-ideal solutions. And that is one of the important part. Okay, so let's have a break, guys. Break for 15 minutes, then we will continue the class.